Welcome, friends. Welcome back to the kitchen. Welcome back to Sunday morning, the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do something out of this 1936 cookbook called the New VIKO Cookbook. This is published by the Viko Aluminum Test Kitchen, aluminum goods manufacturing company, Manitowoc, Wisconsin. It's packed. It is packed with recipes, absolutely packed with recipes. And the interesting thing about this is that Viko Aluminum makes aluminum cookware, all kinds of aluminum cookware. They are part of a much larger aluminum manufacturing company that has divisions that make, aluminum boats and things like that. They were big military contractors. They had the contract during the World Wars for the mess kit, the aluminum mess kit that soldiers used in the United States. So at one point, massive company. And so in 1936, they put this book out. It's part of a series. They had lots of these books. And what I find interesting is not that it's an advertising cookbook, but that it's an advertising cookbook that in this time period does such a soft sell. Now we're going to make something called almond slices. It's a refrigerator cookie, and it tells me to mix in the order given. And it also gives me a recipe that is massive. So in 1936, pretty much all of the cookbooks going back in this time period and earlier, you're looking at recipes that are much larger. You're looking at families that are much larger. So I cut it down because I don't need a cookie recipe that uses 5.5 cups of flour. That's just too many cookies. Now, in with the egg, we have some brown sugar and some white sugar. Now, if you compare this with cookbooks put out in this time period by food companies, baking powder, flour, that sort of thing, those other cookbooks, those food-based cookbooks, are filled with admonitions that if you don't use that brand of X, you're poisoning your family. The hard sell is still really there in the 1930s. Even though by that point, laws had been brought into place about food safety and so on and so forth, the marketing and the advertising still sort of stuck to that hard sell. There's no hard sell here. I mean, there's a little bit at the end where they talk about the different types of cookware that they make, but there's really nothing super hard sell. And I really like this cookbook because it's from a cookware company, they can make a broad width of recipes. Because they have pots and pans, and they have baking sheets, and they have cake tins. So they can do just about every kind of recipe. Whereas, you get a baking soda cookbook, you're kind of limited in what you can make. Okay, so that was melted butter. Next in is cinnamon. Baking soda. Almonds. And we'll spoon in the flour. I'm supposed to put the salt in last. I'm going to put it in now, because if I don't, I will forget. And I'm just going to keep spooning in the flour until it's all gone. And hopefully this comes together into a fairly stiff dough, because I need to shape it into a loaf and then chill it in the fridge overnight. Okay, we'll get this out onto some plastic wrap here. And we'll form a loaf. And I'm going to use that term very loosely. So the dough's pretty warm. I've got it into a rough loaf. I'm going to stick it in the fridge for a couple of hours, let it firm up a little bit more, bring it out, and then really give it a good shaping. Stick it back in the fridge, and we'll see you back here tomorrow for baking. This is a recipe I'm glad I cut in half, because that's going to make a lot of cookies. A lot more cookies than I really want in one sitting, or I want hanging around in the cookie jar. But the great thing about this kind of dough is you can slip it in the freezer. I'm going to take half. So I only made half the recipe, and I'm only going to cut off maybe half of it to bake today. The rest I am going to stick in the freezer, wrap it back up, stick it in the freezer, and then you can slice it off and bake it from frozen. I bake cookies from frozen all the time. pretty much any time you see me on this show make cookies, I'm sticking half the dough in the freezer to bake later. So, tells me to slice in thin slices. I don't know if that's thin enough. We'll see. Last one on the tray. Now it tells me to bake in a hot oven, 425 to 450. So I've got it set at 425, and I'll watch them for about 10 minutes and see what happens. Hey, Jules.
Hey, Glenn. Hey, friends. More cookies. These look like the cookies you would put in like a tiramisu or a...
I mean, if I had shaped the loaf a little more carefully at the beginning. These are almond slices.
Okay. I can see.
Yes. And I cut the recipe in half, and then I only baked half, so there's still half in the freezer.
Those are nice. Mm-hmm. There's not a lot of brown sugar in there, but there's something.
Cinnamon. Very light cinnamon flavor. When I tasted the batter, I thought the cinnamon was going to be really forward and take over. It's just
no, it's kind of nice. It's very nice. It's light.
Hint in the background.
Cinnamon can do that, though.
So this is a dunking in tea biscuit. Yeah, this is actually really good. I
think we need to make.
This is a winner.
We need to go make some tea before we continue eating these.
Right.
I don't know where he's going. I don't know.
Almond slice. It's a winner.
Okay.
Thanks for stopping by.
See you again soon. I probably could have done that. Sorry.